become popularized because it's the connection of the tribes in the Americas with tribes from Asia long ago before Columbus ever was born. But we don't know what that stuff means because we don't know the culture no more. See, once they start trying to corrupt the culture and fighting a war on the culture, they can figure out how to divorce us from the land by making us forego reading our culture and understanding our own movements as a people. Right? They have the maps of them moving the North American slave trade where they was taking us from the north, taking us to the south, telling us we from Africa. They was taking us from Louisiana to the islands, telling us we from Africa. Shuffling us around like we don't know who we be. We know who we be. They just don't know. DMX told them they don't know who we be. But we know because we have various ways to communicate beyond the common measures that they gave us. They think we can only communicate by talking. I could feel a chief on the other side of the country if you want me to, if you're trying to get a message to me. And then I'll get some kind of event in the physical world to show me that he's talking to me for real and it is not my imagination. Most of the wars that we was fighting, when it first started, it was the ones in exile from Europe coming over here. And the ones that were in exile, we just so happened today to call them Moors. They was once called Etruscans. And then they became Tuscans or Tuscanians. And this is their settlement in what became Rome, as they established Rome as an extension of their empire. When they got kicked out of Europe, they needed a homeland. Ain't that the story? They got exiled and needed a homeland, so Yahweh promised them a homeland because they didn't have one of their own. What God gonna create somebody that's not native to nowhere on the planet? That God ain't from this planet. That gotta be somebody else's God. Because the God of the earth know where everybody on earth belong if they from earth. And it talked through the earth to the goddesses of the earth first. This is why all of the best information is channeled through sisters better than a book. If you learn how to read, if a man learn how to read his woman's emotions and stop trying to do all that secret squirrel, cool pimp daddy shit, they a powerhouse together. This is what they don't want because we knew this before they came and we used it and they discovered it, what we was using. So they started murdering off the women that was married to the chiefs and marrying and murdering the chief till there ain't nobody up seasoned enough to deal with the problem. So now we got to learn how to communicate with women all over again, because the way that they teaching us how to communicate is totally destructive to our entire community. It's all about communication that we have our problems. If we understand who we is as a people, we get to overcome the obstacle of what they told us versus what we know to be true. We know everything, especially the sisters, because y'all got direct access to Akashic records, right? That's why I say when you learn how to talk to your uterus, you don't need nobody to tell you nothing at that point. That's big mama training. Because some women take years to learn how to effectively use that method. But once she do, she have direct source influence in her life, and she's going to be able to move stuff that couldn't formerly be moved with common means in the immediate environment. This is why when they start activating laws of nature, like if you watch a mama bear defending her cubs, she'll fight off a male bear 3 times her size, and her ferocity nature turns her ferocity up higher than his, so that she'll stand a fighting chance to protect her babies. That's the law of nature. And the women of the earth got a right at the close of every age to restore the matriarchy and to prepare for the next 7 generations to come. And it's a baton race, and it's carried on from there until entropy sets in and the society decays again, as it is now. Totally screwed up. That's a sign.
How?
Stuff like that is how our ancestors talk to us.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I would just not have that book.
Yeah, but look, your ancestors knew that that book had some information that you needed, so it put it in the place that you're going to come at a price you can easily afford for you to access the information without the traditional block methods like overpricing. Egypt was set up by Tahuti.
Okay.
Tahuti is the one who set up the Temple of Isis in Arizona before Egypt was ever thought about. And the original Temple of Isis in Arizona, the original Sphinx, is all weathered and beaten down, but the artifacts are still there. The same temple priests that he took to Egypt spread out all over the world. And they was putting pieces to the earth history all over the world. It was temple priests that set up what we call today the Hindu civilization. It was temple priests that set up the ancient Ainu civilization in Japan. It was temple priests that organized the Mongolians and gave them civilization. These temple priests all came from what we call today Central America, from Teotihuacan, from Titicaca, and from I forgot the name of the other one. But where you see the Great Pyramids of the Americas in Central America, we have mounds and pyramids all over the Americas. There's the Great Black Pyramid in Alaska, right? There's a couple more of them that look like mountains in the Rockies, but you can't tell that they're not pyramids because they're covered with trees, right? So this is the history before Egypt. Egypt was set up because they was doing some stuff in the Middle East. It's the Middle East now, but it was once called Goshen, which means the extreme provinces of Egypt, or Kemet. It got the name Egypt from the Greeks calling the people Egyptos, which means burnt faces. And they called the people of Ethiopia Ethiops, which means dark faces or burnt black faces, right? So the Ethiops was a mispronunciation of the term for Ethiopia, which is the 9 ether science, right? So we're talking about what's known as Black Root Science. There's pieces to the Black Root Science in all of the cultures, and if you don't know all of the cultures, you can't never get all of the pieces, and therefore you can't never activate the Divine 9. Right, so they call it the Great Ennead. But first you have to get the Great Ogdad active. These is all Egyptian mysteries that most people have no clue what they mean. They just think they sound good because they can say some hieroglyphic stuff in English. But that's the source of Kemet and its knowledge and the temple priests. When they told us they burned down the library in Alexandria, those were all copies. The library was moved by tunnel to the Vatican long before the fire ever started, right? Because those documents needed to be available for the future. And we're going to be able to send researchers in there to go get our real history out. Over here, a lot of us don't know this, but the tribal histories is kept in caves in national parks. That's why a lot of us can't find our true history because they put it away out of our sight.
Mm-hmm.
We have history just like they got history. It just ain't written in English. And some of it has been translated over time.
Mm-hmm.
If they earthborn and they fertile and they can make a baby and carry a baby, they can talk to source through their uterus. It's a direct line. It don't matter what part of the earth she's from, long as she's earthborn, she can ground out and talk to her uterus, talk to source. Any earthborn woman that can produce a child has it. Some of them had hysterectomies, can still do it using the spiritual, what they call phantom limb. Well, some women didn't know how to tap it, those specifically the ones from Europe. This is one of the reasons they came here. If you go back to the witch hunts, you will see that the big mamas was teaching them what's known as yoni magic, and they was killing all of the pale-faced women that was being taught and the big mama that was teaching them, right? Because they didn't want them to have that same access to source data, but they can still communicate using the uterus if they know the science. First in time is first in line. Y'all have access to stuff from the melanin that other nations can't access.
Right.
Melanin is what we call autosentient. It's conscious by itself. Right. And the skin melanin allows the melanin to have a broader reception range. You got a larger surface area to draw in data. There is a difference in because it's like dimensional travel.
It's like levels almost. It's levels to this, you know?
Yeah. It ain't that we strayed away, it's that we went into a war and the enemy used our culture to attack us by reversing it on us. And then they gave us a foreign culture as if it was actually our culture. It was an actual conjure. It was a 200-year amnesia that was created. I call it the George Washington Challenge. Because it was done in the Masonic lodges in Philadelphia, but they had to move the capital to DC. The conjure was the secondary constitution that was written in the blood of Crispus Attucus to lock us under that constitutional paradigm. And the side effect is they killed off our elders and they mistaught us to give us amnesia.
What they call it, the kilt conjure.
That might be it because it was done by 30 straight smoke. That might be exactly it because it was performed by 32 degree Scottish Rite Freemasons. So that might be the Masonic name for it.
Correct.
Wind talking is something that you learn over time. I can't tell you like do this, and you wind talking. It don't work like that. You have to be it's part of it is in your blood. It's telepathic. The closest thing you can do to learn is control remote viewing. So you get a CVR manual, control remote viewing manual that the guys who invented or who originally researched it wrote that tell you how to activate your remote viewing. That's one of the skills that come with wind talking or cold talking is learning to remote view through time and space. Do you know what a catch? Do you know what a catch term is?
Yes.
Okay. So the word as we see today, MOOR, was part of the Conjure War.
Mm-hmm.
And it classified those who was MUUR indigenous and those who was MAURI foreign under the same banner.
Ah.
This is how you end up with righteous Moors like Sabir Bey. and then you end up with dirty Moors.
Mm-hmm.
The righteous Moors know that we from over here and we gonna reclaim our land.
Mm-hmm.
The dirty Moors want to convince us that we foreigners so that they can claim our land in our stead, and that they Yahweh will have found them a homeland. They've waged this war all over the planet. When they settled in Europe, they got kicked out for blood rights, for adrenochrome harvesting,
Mm-hmm.
and cannibalism.
Mm-hmm.
When they came over here, they were vampires. And because we wear wolves, wolf pelts, our military, one of the totem clans, the Black Wolf Clan, wore black wolf pelts.
Mm-hmm.
And so they called us werewolves for those who wear the wolf. And they said that we was lichens because we look like kin.
Mm.
So these is the terms you see in your vampire horror story movie,
Right.
right?
Right.
The zombie is the old voodoo Zumbe,
Mm-hmm.
which is the one who is physically present, but his God self is unawakened, right? But it became sensationalized in Hollywood as a walking dead person. It's not what it means. It means there's a person with the God gene that's not active. He's the
Oh.
Zumbe. And you got to go through a certain ritual to wake you up,
Mm-hmm.
which is going into why they wanted us to stay away from the Badoon, because it empowers us to wake the God self up. And they don't want us doing that. It's too
Right.
late. We woke.
Right. Right. Why?
Yeah.
Thank
But
you.
this is how we end up with good Moors or righteous Moors and dirty
Okay.
Moors.
Okay.
If you Google King Charles V
Mm-hmm.
and go to images, you're looking for an image with King Charles and a whole bunch of Indian chiefs,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then go to George Washington, George Washington Masonic Memorial Museum, and type in and put Fezes behind it. It's gonna pull up a Fez display.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the Scottish Rite Freemasons and Shriners that came over as masters of the occult sciences.
Mm.
And the chiefs you see with Charles V. Charles V was a melanated chief, but they paint him pale in the pictures.
Okay.
But he was one of the ones that was of the righteous families that was settled in Europe, that was ousting the ones that was eating the babies.
Wow.
So he bet the wager on the Chiefs. This is why that mural was created. This is all done in the lodges. It's all blueprints to an exit strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see the George Washington statement about the 200 years,
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't know which side of the water we from if they take the fezzes from the Moors and the sandals from the chiefs, right? So that group of chiefs are now here reclaiming everything in what we call their descendants. So it comes down, they say beef is inherited, and they telling you that for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So the totem chiefs come back at the end to fix all of the problems and to restore the tribal mothers back to the land. And we work from different fields based on our ability. Everybody not supposed to do the same thing, because if everybody do the same thing, we couldn't get nothing done.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody not always supposed to agree, because if everybody always agreed, we wouldn't get nothing done.
Right.
It's through the disagreement and the contention that the truth surfaces above the BS,
Okay.
right? So Sabir Bey know he tribally from this side of the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
and he know it's dirty Moors. All of the Moors know. If you say, what do y'all call certain Moors dirty Moors? They tell you, yeah,
Yep.
they do it themselves because they have to identify all of the infiltrators in